Revolutions. They are, without a doubt, some of the most explosive, violent, and history-shaping events humanity has ever known. I mean, they topple kings, they create entire nations, and they totally redefine our ideas of justice and freedom. But what are they, really? And why do they even happen? All right, let's get into it. Okay, so picture this. It's the evening of July 14th, 1789. King Louis XVI of France has just been told that a Parisian mob has stormed the Bastille, a royal prison. He turns to his aide, a bit confused, and asks, "Is this a revolt?" And the aide's reply is just legendary. It cuts right to the heart of what we're talking about today. "No, sire, it is a revolution." That aide, he knew. He knew this was something completely different. This wasn't just another riot over the price of bread. So what is that crucial difference? What is the line that separates a simple revolt from a world-changing revolution?
Well, political scientists have a pretty solid definition that, breaks it down into 4 key ingredients. First, it's got to be a forcible overthrow of the government. It's not a peaceful transition. Second, it requires mass mobilization. We're talking huge numbers of ordinary people getting involved. Third, it has to be driven by a powerful vision of social justice. And fourth, and this is the real kicker, the goal is to create entirely new political institutions. You're not just changing the person in charge, you're changing the entire system.
And this definition is super helpful because it clarifies what a revolution isn't. Things like peasant revolts or grain riots, they usually just want help from the existing government, not to tear it down completely. And a coup d'etat? That's typically just one group of powerful people swapping places with another, but without the masses rising up. Now, all these things can be part of a revolution, for sure, but they aren't the whole shebang. So, okay, if revolutions are this specific and actually pretty rare, what on earth causes them? Well, the answer is a lot more complex than you might think, and it starts with us busting a few really common myths. We all have this image, right, that revolutions are sparked by the poorest of the poor just rising up out of desperation. But the reality is they often happen in middle-income countries. And it's not even inequality itself that lights the fuse. I mean, huge inequality has been the norm for most of human history. The real tipping point comes when people stop seeing their hardship as just, the way things are, and they start blaming the government for being corrupt, incompetent, or just plain unjust. So probably the best way to think about it is this idea of a society's equilibrium. A stable society is like a marble at the bottom of a bowl, right? You can push it around, but it always just rolls back to the center. It's stable. But an unstable society, that's like balancing that same marble on top of an upside-down bowl. It might look stable for a minute, but the tiniest little nudge can send it flying off in a totally new direction. That's a revolution. So what causes that shift from stable to unstable? It comes down to 5 conditions all hitting at once. First, fiscal strain. The government is basically going broke. Then, and this is so important, you get elite alienation. The rich and powerful start to feel left out and they turn against the regime. This is often the real spark. That elite opposition then connects with widespread popular anger, this deep feeling that the system is totally unfair. But anger's not enough. You need a shared narrative, a really powerful story that unites everybody against the government. And finally, you need a favorable world, meaning other major countries either help the revolutionaries or at least stay out of the way. When all 5 of those things line up, the whole system becomes incredibly fragile. But here's the thing. Once the old government falls, the story is far from over. In fact, you could say the most chaotic, the most unpredictable part is just getting started. It's a total roller coaster. So, after the state breaks down, what you get is a brutal power struggle. The moderate voices, the ones who maybe just wanted some reforms, they often get crushed by the radicals who want to burn it all down and remake society from scratch. This almost always leads to a period of extreme violence, what we call the terror, as the new regime fights its enemies, both inside and outside the country. Eventually, things do settle down into a new normal, but the road to get there is often just soaked in blood. And to get through all that chaos, you actually need 2 very different kinds of leaders. You need the visionaries, the incredible speakers and writers like Thomas Jefferson or Lenin, who can paint this amazing picture of the future that inspires millions. But that's not enough. You also need the organizers, the practical, get-it-done geniuses like George Washington or Leon Trotsky, who can actually build the armies and run the government to make that vision happen. You absolutely need both to succeed.
Now, these patterns, these principles, they aren't just theory from a textbook. We see them play out again and again and again all throughout history. So let's do a quick whirlwind tour.
We can even see these dynamics way back in the ancient world.
The Roman Revolution, for instance, wasn't a mass uprising from the bottom. It was this decades-long power struggle between elites, between powerful generals and senators. And it ended with Augustus Caesar completely rebuilding Rome's political institutions, basically killing the Republic and creating the Roman Empire. It's a perfect example of a revolution from the top down.
Now, the American Revolution, on the other hand, brought something completely new to the table. This wasn't just about swapping one king for another. It created an entirely new type of government, one that wasn't based on the divine right of kings, but on a written constitution. And this radical idea that a government's power comes from the consent of the governed, I mean, that was a total game changer for the entire world. And then, of course, there's the French Revolution. Man, this one had it all. It ticks every single box. The government was broke, the elites were furious, the people were angry, and they had this incredibly powerful news story: liberty, equality, fraternity. From storming the Bastille to the Reign of Terror, it became the bloody, dramatic prototype for pretty much every social revolution that came after it. It both inspired and terrified people for generations. So all of this brings us to the toughest question of all. After all the chaos, all the terror, all the war, what is the real legacy of revolution? Was any of it worth it? The truth is, it's a giant paradox. On the one hand, revolutions promise us our absolute highest ideals: liberty, democracy, social justice. Our modern ideas of human rights and citizenship were literally forged in the fire of these events. But the price? Oh, the price is just horrifyingly high. They unleash our absolute darkest impulses: terror, civil war, and sometimes even dictatorship and genocide. Just look at that number. Over 20 million people. Let that sink in for a second. And that's a conservative estimate of the number of people who died in just 3 20th century revolutions: the Mexican, the Russian, and the Chinese. The human cost can be absolutely staggering. We're talking sometimes 1 out of every 10 people in an entire country just gone. So at the end of the day, we're left with this really profound and honestly unsettling question. Revolutions are without a doubt one of the great engines of historical change. Many of the freedoms that we take for granted today exist because of them, and yet they so often deliver terror right alongside their promise of justice. So are they a necessary evil, a tragic but essential part of human progress? Or are they a recurring human catastrophe that we still haven't figured out how to escape?